right, before the rabbi speaks, I just want to thank our guests up here. Most of you know them, but if you don't, we have Leanne Puglisi, George's wife, son Jonathan, his daughter Aviana, and Steve and Jerry, Allison. Sorry.
You can forgive me.
No,
I want to thank you all for coming. Anybody who wants to sit down can feel free to sit. And again, I want to welcome to the Puglisi family and thank them for being here to show us what this day is all about. Too often we think of Memorial Day as just a day to have a barbecue, maybe enjoy a parade. This little ceremony of placing a wreath is really at the core of the history of this day. Originally it was known as Decoration Day to remember the fallen soldiers in the Civil War. And anyone with any military knowledge is of course aware of the humbling but simple tune of taps, both when the soldiers go to sleep at night, but also to remember those who go on to their eternal sleep in the earth, and particularly those who gave their lives in defense of our great nation. Legend has it that there was a captain, Robert Ellison of the Union Army, who was unaware that his son had moved down south to go to music school and joined the Confederate Army, and found him on the battlefield dying, recognizing it to be his own son fighting on the opposite side of the war. And in his pockets he found those notes of taps. He wanted to have a full military funeral for his son, but of course that was impossible. He was fighting for the enemy. But he was allowed to have a small funeral for him, and there he had played one bugler playing taps that his son had composed posthumously. And then when the story was told and heard, the song became standard in the military. This is a very popular myth. Historically, it isn't true. It was actually a General Daniel Butterfield who composed taps and actually adopted it from an earlier tune. And to the best of my knowledge, this myth came about maybe in the late 1940s. Robert Ripley, the famous cartoonist, told this story shortly before his death, and it had been spread through the ages since then. But the great psychologist Carl Jung tells us that our myths often teach us greater truths than historical facts. And the fact that such a story could be told really embraces what Memorial Day is all about and what service to this country is all about. And really, although I'm not a Christian, the Christian roots of this country, the teaching of love thy enemy, that's really what America is all about. Every conflict this country has ever been in was not out of hatred for another country, for someone who's different from us, but to rescue them from the scourge of evil. Like the saying says, the popular saying, hate the sin but love the sinner. We didn't fight because we hated the people in the South, but because we hated the sin of slavery and the sin of racism. We didn't fight Germany or Japan because we hated the Germans or the Japanese, but we hated the evil of Nazism and the evil of how the Japanese Empire sent their own people to commit suicide in a fruitless manner. We didn't fight in Korea or Vietnam because we hated the Korean people or the Vietnamese people, but because we loved them and wanted to save them from the evils of communism. And we didn't fight in Iraq or Afghanistan because we hated Arabs or Muslims. Just the opposite. Our founders had just tremendous respect for Islam, as we can find in the writings of both Jefferson and Franklin. But because we loved those people and wanted to rescue them from the evil of their tormentors and tyrants who are conquering them. And so too, this story represents the ultimate brotherhood of all of us as Americans and all of us as human beings, as America is that shining city on the hill to represent the beacon of liberty and freedom to all peoples. And so those who, again, as the Christian scripture teaches, that there's no greater love than to lie down your life for your fellow. The great love that people like George did in protecting this country and standing up for liberty, that's the ultimate message of America and the ultimate message of Memorial Day. And we can embrace that love, loving all people but hating evil and fighting evil with no shame. By embracing that, just like this father in the story loved his son and wanted to honor him while hating the evil that he was fighting for, perhaps even against his will, and in composing TAPS. And so the memorial, there are no official lyrics to TAPS, but there are some that have been applied to it. And I'd just like to finish off with some of those as we wish the memory of those who have departed to rest in peace and find the Lord as their heritage. Day is done, gone the sun, from the hills, from the lake, but God is nigh. Thanks and praise for our days, 'neath the sun, 'neath the stars, 'neath the sky. As we go, this we know, God is nigh. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. I want to thank everybody for coming today.